Hey guys, it's QuickyBaby and welcome back to World of Tanks. Much to my surprise yesterday, a brand new vehicle which I had never seen before was released in World of Tanks. It is the M4 Improved. The vehicle was released to commemorate the end of the Great War in Europe, and it will be available until the end of this week. After which we have no idea whether it will return or not, so I'm going to let you know, is it worth it, with some Ace Tanker gameplay and a full review of this Tier 5 premium American medium tank. The M4 Improved does look rather funky indeed. When I first saw the vehicle, I thought that it looked quite a lot like a T14 heavy tank. The history behind the vehicle is apparently that of course it's a variant of the M4 medium tank with an angled hull and turret armor. Developed by the Detroit Arsenal in August 1942, and the changes were intended to improve the tank's protection without increasing weight or degrading other technical characteristics. However, it existed only in blueprints. As the name would suggest, it is very similar to the M4 Sherman, which is a very popular vehicle in World of Tanks, and if this is your kind of gameplay, then you might be able to get it with the premium bonus of the M4 Improved. The easiest way for me to show you the changes will be to do a tank compare. So firstly, let's compare the health and the armament of the M4 Improved and the M4 Sherman. Well, the vehicles have the same frontal hull armor, but look how amazing the M4 Improved side armor is. It's 63mm. The side armor on this tank is superior to the front of this tank if it wasn't for the fact that the front was so well angled. Everyone knows just how flat the side of the regular M4 Sherman is, which makes it a super easy target to penetrate for pretty much every tank that it will meet. It should be noted that while the game tells us that there is 63mm of armor on the side of the M4 Improved, this is only the lower half of the tank. We can see that the upper half of the vehicle is only 44mm thick, which is still better than the upper half of the regular Sherman, which is 38mm. But this upper part is very well angled indeed, and so that means that you can get some very effective armor thickness on the side of your tank if you do angle it. Next, the M4 Improved has better rear armor, and it has better turret armor at the front, but worse at the side and the rear. If we look at the M4 Sherman's turret, it is 88mm mostly over the front of the mantlet, with the cheeks being about 100mm of effective armor. If we look at the M4 Improved, we can see that the mantlet is much smaller, but some parts are very thick indeed, while the side of the cheeks will result in a ricochet because of the well-angled nature, and the flat part just outside the mantlet is going to be a weak point of about 80 to 90mm thickness. The M4 Improved has 480 hit points, which is 20 more than the regular Sherman, and it looks like its modules can take quite a substantial amount more of a beating, with having nearly double the engine health. Now let's compare the mobility of these tanks. We can see that the M4 Improved is faster by 8 kilometers, nice. Its reverse speed is also awesome, 25 kilometers an hour. I've been able to get this thing going super fast down hills, and it has a whopping horsepower advantage of 640 to 460. And while the vehicle does weigh more, weighing just shy of 40 tons, while the regular Sherman is just over 32 tons, this still gives it a superior horsepower to ton ratio of 17 compared to 15.5. And unless you're on soft terrain, the ground resistances are just the same. Add this to a very small turret traverse advantage and a very small track traverse advantage of 2 degrees, and you have an all-round faster, more mobile vehicle that I'd say on the whole is more heavily armored. So you might be thinking, what is the downside? Well, in some areas, at least with regards to penetration, it is the gun, but in other areas, the gun performs better than on the regular Sherman. Look at the DPM disparity. The M4 Improved gets 220 more DPM compared to the M4 Sherman, and that's because it fires 15 rounds a minute rather than 12.5 that the regular Sherman gets, while the alpha damage of the gun only drops by 5 from 115 to 110. So that means the M4 Improved is going to be able to pick apart its opponents faster than the regular Sherman is. But I should make a passing mention that the regular Sherman can use a 105mm howitzer that, if you hit lightly armored targets, will pretty much one-shot them at tier 5. Now this is where the good news for the M4 Improved ends. Its penetration is massively worse than on the M4 Sherman. It has 92mm of penetration, which at tier 5 is not very good at all. When we compare this to the rather nice 128 that the regular Sherman gets, you are going to be bouncing a hell of a lot with the M4 Improved, unless you get the side, the enemy tank, or hopefully the rear. And I should also quickly add that this vehicle does not get preferential matchmaking. You will be meeting tier 7 tanks. And unless you want to fire premium rounds, you're going to have to try and make 92mm of penetration work against vehicles such as a T-29. Another thing I found with the 10 or so games that I played with this tank is that the shell velocity is very low indeed. Traveling at 619 meters a second, you do have to give a hell of a lot of lead with your shots, almost feeling like you're firing high explosive rounds even though they are AP. However, the M4 Improved has advantages with regards to aim time being 0.2 better than the regular Sherman, while the accuracy is only 0.1 worse, and the vehicle gets much better dispersion ratings, which means that although you're going to have to be firing more rounds a minute, you're going to be able to do so with the better gun handling that this vehicle gets. But unfortunately for the M4 Improved, it doesn't get that ridiculous depression that the regular Sherman gets of 12 degrees. It instead gets 10, but that's still fantastic, and there are very few tanks in the game that get over 10. Another thing that I should mention is that if you were hoping that you could make up for this poor penetration by just firing APCR rounds, that's not really going to work on the M4 Improved because they only have 127mm of penetration. While if you elect to fire premium with the M4 Sherman, it goes up to 177. Finally, I'd just like to highlight how damn good the M4 Improved's armor can be. We can see using the live version of Tanks GG that if we angle our armor like this, it is most effective, with the whole of the front being 90mm and the whole of the side being 90mm plus. And if they're foolish enough to try and shoot you in the tracks, you've got 120 to about 160mm of side armor, while your turret is still quite likely to pull off a ricochet against equal and lower tier targets, and even challenge some higher tier shots occasionally. It does feel very weird angling a medium tank like this, but that is the kind of angle that you are going to have to get used to if you want to be able to pull off bounces in your M4 Improved. Anyway, I think that's quite enough theory crafting. Let's get stuck into some gameplay. So here we go, we are playing in a rather nice matchup on Himmelsdorf. Half of the enemy team are tier 5 and half of them are tier 4. But we've got to watch out because, wow, they've got 2 extra tier 5 tanks than us. Good job, matchmaker. So, check out the mobility of the M4 Improved here. We're able to overtake that T... What the hell is that? I'm not really a low tier player. Okay, a T80, a tier 4 light tank. And we're racing past this T28. Going along at 50 kilometers an hour. I don't think the M4 Sherman would be able to get up to this 55 kilometers an hour, even along the streets of Himmelsdorf here. Obviously, 8 kilometers an hour top speed limit better allows you to race into position. This thing truly is very mobile for a medium tank. And it has enough armor to take a beating also at these low tiers. The only downside to playing a medium tank at these tiers is that you really do have a hell of a lot of less hit points than, for example, a heavy. Quite a few heavies at tier 5 have got 650, upwards of 700 hit points. And so you can't take many shots in your M4 Improved. But get an idea of the gun dispersion as well here. There is quite a bloom, but it's not that bad. The rate of fire is quite brutal. And when you're shooting at the side of a T28, it doesn't matter if you've got sub 100mm of penetration at tier 5, because you're able to pick them apart quite quickly. Also, one thing that I forgot to mention in the garage is that this tank gets 370 meters base view range. And because it's a premium, I put my most experienced crew in the game, my M48 Patton's crew, straight into the vehicle. And I believe they have, situational awareness, recon, brothers in arms. And so that means that when you combine that with coated optics, you will be reaching a very decent view range. I think my view range here is about 450 meters. So beyond that 445 spotting cap that we're looking for. And that allows us at low tiers, where players are quite often not using 100% crews, to be able to see them when they can't see us. There's a Grant passing through. We don't penetrate the side of his tank. That one does, however. And the Grant can't take that many hits from 75mm guns. And he's out. Try and shoot through there at the T1. Didn't quite. I thought that wreckage might have been passable, but it wasn't. Now we're going to have some trouble trying to penetrate the side of this T1's armor as he is angling. If I was in the regular Sherman here, I would probably be buttering the side of that T1. But you're in the M4 Improved. You're not going to be able to penetrate those kind of tanks unless you truly have the side of their vehicle, and it's very flat indeed. So, most of the enemy team have already been defeated on the hill. Good job by my team. Let's see what we can do here. Good shot. The gun isn't the most accurate, so when you hit those kind of opportunities, you've got to be quite happy. But we have the mobility and the DPM to get in and rip apart some tanks. And look at how fast we are going to make short work of this Panzerfahr H. Goodbye. He didn't know what hit him, literally. Now we turn around to deal with the 3-4 behind us. And we're getting shot by heat rounds by a dastardly Type 95. The first heat round didn't go through our tank. The second one did. I'm not sure if I should be pulling back here, but I was quite afraid that that T1 Heavy and the KV-1 might be able to get us. And remember, when you've lost half your hit points and you only have 212 left, you can't afford to take many hits from the 85mm gun that the KV-1 may or may not be using. Luckily, again, the M4 Improved is a fast tank. And if I was to go around the corner on the left here, it's quite likely that KV-1 would just make me look rather silly. An equal tier heavy opponent is not a frontal engagement for this vehicle when you have such poor penetration. However, if you use the mobility of this vehicle, you need to outflank your opponents, get behind them, and let's be honest, at low tiers people aren't that aware of things, and so I guess that's what you're going to be doing in these low tier premiums, right? Seal clubbing, it feels. I do feel quite mean here. But that's just the way it goes. I wanted to test out this tank so I could get you guys a review of it. So in this 4.5-minute game, we picked up 1,405 damage and also secured 6 kills. Let's just take a very quick look at the post-game stats. So in this very short game, we picked up a decent amount of credits and a good amount of experience, getting an ace tanker, a high caliber, and a top gun. I don't think we fired any premium rounds this game. Well, actually, maybe we fired 1 or 2, I didn't notice. But we still secured over 40,000 credits profit. And one of the things that low-tier premium tanks do get now is a huge amount of bonus experience. And so that's why we got 2,260, which makes this vehicle quite nice if you want to train up your American medium tank crew. But you don't want to do it in something like a Super Pershing, because you feel safer at tier 5. All in this kind of a matchup, you can be quite dominant in an M4 Improved. So there's no doubt that the M4 Improved is very powerful in a lovely matchup like this, where it has the mobility, the DPM, and the armor to still take a few hits. But what about when you get into the worst possible matchmaking of this tank and you have to meet tier 7s, where there's quite a few tanks that can one-shot you, and at the very least, you're pretty much losing 30 to 50% of your hit points with every hit you take from a tier 7 tank. Well, I was kind of pleasantly surprised in the evening that I had. Just before we played on Himmelsdorf, I played on Siegfried Line Assault. And as we can see, there were quite a few very nasty tier 7 tanks, both on my team and the enemy team. And one thing that you find is that when you are bottom tier, you don't have to do a lot of damage to still get a big chunk of experience. This game, we played a supporting role, we put a couple of shots into a tier 6 Soviet tank destroyer, 3 hits into a tier 7 French heavy tank, and a couple of hits into a tier 7 German tank destroyer, as well as taking out the entirety of a tier 5 British light tank, the Crusader, which resulted in quite a nice profit of 27,000 credits. And this is where low tier premiums really do shine. We got 1,561 experience because of the bonus for being a premium vehicle that will go into our crew training, or if you're so inclined, convert to be able to use as free experience on other tanks. I tried my very best to not use any premium rounds as we see here, and even though I fired 20 and hit 17, only half of those managed to penetrate, giving us a total of 900 damage. But as I mentioned, still enough to finish second. Good game. Let's take a look at another example, this time on Prokhorovka, where there were quite a few tier 7 vehicles on both my team and the enemy team. In this game, the penetration of the tank really did shine through. Look at this. I hit this KV-1S 7 times and only did 105 damage to him. 25 shots, 18 hits, and again, only 9 penetrations. But that is to be expected when you've got sub 100 penetration in a tier 7 game. Nevertheless, we managed to do 1,000 damage, finished in the top half of the table, but because the matchmaking was so bad for us, that puts us third on experience. And again, thanks to the bonus, 1,582 experience to go into our crew training, and a rather tasty 30,000 credits profit, even though it looks like I did fire a couple of premium rounds that game. And in a true supporting role, we did 500 spotting and got a Confederate medal. And that truly sums up the kind of role that you will have to play when you get into a bad matchup in this tank, assisting teammates that are locked in combat with higher tiered vehicles, trying to use your speed to get into position and shoot them in the side or the rear. Or alternatively, use that wonderful 370 meters base view range, combined with a decent crew and coated optics will enable you to spot most of your opponents before they can see you. And so I guess the real question, is this M4 improved? Well, I think it certainly is when it gets to be top tier in the game, or when there's just a few tier 6s on the enemy team. The armor in this tank certainly enables you to pull off a bounce where a regular Sherman could not. And the mobility and the DPM advantage allow you to pick apart equal and low tiered opponents faster than a regular Sherman can, of course, if you can penetrate them. However, the gun truly does suffer against quite a few tier 5 heavies and most tier 6 and tier 7 tanks. And so you will have to be as sneaky as you can if you want to still have good results in the game. So the final question will be, well, is it worth it? Well, I'm pleasantly surprised with the pricing that Wargaming had for this premium vehicle. They finally seem to have been listening to us, and they've given us the option to both have the tank more or less by itself for 10 euros, or alternatively you can buy that big bundle to be able to get some gold, I guess, on discount and some premium time, as well as access to 10 exclusive missions. However, I will say that this access to 10 exclusive missions is a little bit underwhelming. All it does is give you 10 times 5 experience when you play the M4 improved only. So fair enough, this is a nice little freebie to get that might give you a bit of crew training or free experience if you want to convert with the mountain of gold that you get. But irrelevant of the Ultimate Bundle, I was very pleasantly surprised that Wargaming were giving us a brand new premium tank for 10 euros. Plus one to you guys, and hopefully something that we see continue. But whether or not this tank is actually worth the 10 euros, I guess depends on your playstyle. For me, honestly, I bought this tank just so I could do a review on it, and it's quite likely that I'm never going to play this tank again. But that's just because I don't really enjoy the low tier games. I feel like all I'm really trying to do is pick apart inexperienced players. And that's no fun for me, really. I like to stick around about tier 8 or 9, and there are still some tier 7 tanks that I really like to play, as you guys might know. But for somebody who enjoys lower tier combat, and maybe you've got a thing for the M4 Sherman, then maybe this will be the tank for you. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video, or maybe it was just useful to you trying to figure out whether this tank is worth it or not. If so, please consider giving this video a like down below. It really helps the channel out. And let me know in the comments what you think about the M4 improved. Is it truly improved over the Sherman? Or do you think this is a big waste of space, time, and money, and you'd far rather get on to more important things? And as always, guys, thank you so much for watching. You've been epic, and hopefully I'll see you soon.